Welcome to Bits and Pieces. I'm excited today. I'm going to get to cook from one of my new to me vintage cookbooks. It's the Boston Cooking School Cookbook by Fannie Merritt Farmer. This is the 1937 edition. Some of the ingredients I needed today I was able to harvest from the garden, which consisted of fresh parsley, a mix of lettuces, and some kohlrabi. We're starting with this French salad dressing. If you want to pause here to write down this, please feel free to do so. The recipe suggested starting with a small jar, so I did a half recipe for this. So I used olive oil, I used a white wine vinegar. It just said vinegar or red wine vinegar or vinegar and lemon juice. I went with white wine vinegar. As you can see, I'm getting low on my salt, at least the regular table salt, and then some paprika. And then you put the lid on it and you shake it for 1 to 2 minutes, I think it said. You can tell this dressing recipe is just so hard. The next thing to pre-prep is the maitre d'hotel or parsley butter. Once again, feel free to pause the video in order to write down the recipe if you wish. I do wish I'd set my butter out earlier to soften a bit more. But after setting aside the butter, I proceeded to chop the fresh parsley very fine. I did chop up a little more than I needed right away, but I just put it all in a bowl and measured it out from there so I can use the rest of the parsley later. And it wasn't too terribly too much. And I probably should have centered that bowl a little bit better. I'm going to get better at this, I promise. But from there I added salt and pepper and the parsley and some lemon juice. And the recipe said to then use a wooden spoon. As you can see, the butter really does need to be softer. But as it softened, it got a little easier to mix. I probably, if I was doing this again, would just go ahead and use a fork. The next recipe was a very simple kohlrabi recipe. This is a vegetable that's still fairly new to me. Once again, if you want the recipe, please feel free to pause and copy that. Okay, I should have just snipped these leaves off with the scissors, but I really didn't want to get them out. I was just trying to reuse the knife. Those leaves can be cooked. I really didn't have enough of them, nor do I have enough in my garden to do that. So they went in the compost. And then I peeled the kohlrabi. I think the recipe said one small kohlrabi per person. I was feeding 2 people, so I did 2, although one of those is a little bit bigger than the other. Okay, twice the size, but it still didn't make a whole lot of kohlrabi. And then once it was peeled, I began to slice it thinly. While I was working on this, I did have a small pot of water on the stove to boil. At this point, I added salt. This is my canning salt that I have had sitting in the pantry for a while. And then added these slices of kohlrabi. After they were cooked till tender, I threw them into a small bowl, added some salt and pepper, and some of that maitre d' butter. It just said butter. I didn't see any harm in reusing what I had, because even doing a half recipe, it was more than what I needed for the steak. So for the steak, I just did a quick cook in the pan. I cut off a little bit of the excess fat, and it wasn't too horribly much on this, but it was definitely enough to grease the pan. I just dropped those little bits of fat in the skillet and then let it grease up, and then drop the steak in there. I seared it on both sides. and then turned the heat down a bit and turning it every so often until I got it cooked to the desired consistency. As my wife and I usually just share one of these, when I got it cooked to where I wanted it, I cut it in half and then cooked it just a little bit longer for her. After that was the last bit, which was to take my washed lettuce and, according to instructions on making salads in this cookbook, cut them up to an easy size to put on a fork. I also removed any lettuce's leaves that were brown or wilted. I've got an abundance of lettuce right now. I might as well only enjoy the nicest bits. And that's it. Just arrange the lettuce on a plate, serve it up. I really had too big of a plate for that half a steak in the kohlrabi, but it turned out well. It's a very enjoyable dinner. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying these and want to see more, please like and subscribe.